Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You already know the vibes. It's Jeff Johnson. Jeff J says we starting off this inaugural show, NBA season, live with you. And in the building, I got the man of 1,001 jobs. You see him, the head honcho creator, KnicksFanTV, WFAN Radio New York, Sirius XM NBA Radio. And because he didn't have enough jobs, he also started up the NBA Report. My man, CP, the Fanchise. CP, talk to me, brother. How you feeling?
Jeff, I'm feeling good, man. We're coming up on the start of the NBA season, and we're about to take the wraps off a new one, and I'm ready to go, man. Happy to be on with you, though, for sure.
I appreciate you. You already know that, man. And if guest spots were like passport stamps, your book would be full. You need a whole other book right now. I know you've been all over the place, so I'm glad you're going to spend some time with us. We getting into NBA action. You know we're going to talk about the Knicks. Welcome to the channel. Like the video. If you love what you're hearing, tell a friend to tell a friend. You know we got CP in the building. We're taking your comments too. All of that going on right now. So CP, I wanted to get into it for those, I don't know how many people that's around there that may not know, but you know, we make a first impression every time we put out a video. So I'm just interested, you know, elevator pitch. What made you want to start Knicks Fan TV?
Well, maybe we want to start Knicks Fan TV was the lack of in-depth coverage around the team, especially during the dark times, right? Mainstream media, if it wasn't the hot topic, the hot trade, or something salacious about the team, then they weren't covering that, right? And even on the local level, yes, you'll have your game, you have your pregame, you have your postgame, but not much programming after that. And right now we're in a 24/7 news content cycle, on-demand content. Fans want it. And what I realized with Knicks Fan TV, or what I knew, was that on a global scale, there's going to be guys out there that want to know about the star acquisition or even what's going on in the G League from top to bottom. And so that's what made me want to get into Knicks Fan TV, was really to give the fans an alternate platform to really tap in on the team, express their opinions, express their emotions. They are the fans, the investors of the game, the people who buy the tickets, the people who watch day in and day out, blood, sweat, and tears. And so that's why I really wanted to start Knicks Fan TV.
Yeah, when I say your platform filled a void that was missing, especially in them lean years where fans want an outlet to either voice their frustration or jump completely out the window when it comes to their takes and everything they got going on, right? Yeah. Like this is what they want to happen, and you were able to fill that. And I know we connected. You know, my life is like pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. I don't even know where it interconnects. But I remember when you were first starting it up and we connected and I was on the show. It feels like many moons ago when you was in the studio. You was in the studio in New York. And I remember then when we were talking, I thought to myself, yo, there really isn't another outlet for fans to call in. You know, we had the terrestrial radio, got FAN, ESPN New York, those type things, CBS, or you remember it used to be CD 101.9. Hey, you know what I mean? We used to be CD 101.9, and now that's sports radio too. So you, especially in this new media era, digital, going in on YouTube, live streaming. For those people who don't know, who may not be in the content creation game, we're live streaming now. Talk about the pressures or the benefits or anything of streaming. Like what is that world like for you?
Sure. Well, the benefits of streaming is that there's no editing in between, right? So you do your show, you hit live, and you do your whole program, and then you hit end. And then should you choose to put that out there, that's what's out there, raw and uncut, or as polished as you would like it to be. So it cuts down on the editing time, but there are a lot of pressures, right? You have your technology pressure. You have to make sure that you have constant internet, that your equipment is working, that your computer's up to speed, it's not crashing or bugged out. You also have to make sure that you can put on a show while you might be producing and hosting at the same time, like you're doing right now.
Exactly.
Right. So with that, you're monitoring your system levels, but you're also having to make sure that you're getting your thoughts out and your show is flowing. So there's definitely benefits to it. There's certainly challenges, but it's all rewarding at the end of the day.
Yeah, and you started the NBA report, and it's funny, we was talking earlier. I got it in my feed. I didn't even realize it was a whole other channel. I thought it was under Knicks Fan TV. What made you want to start the NBA report, and what gap are you trying to fill with this page?
Yeah. So the benefit of the NBA report is that as we kept growing Knicks Fan TV and had great guests such as yourself, we had a collection. We had a Rolodex of NBA guests, not just Knicks guests. And so with the NBA report, I really wanted to tap in not just on the Knicks, but on the NBA at large and really bring that same sports radio style content in terms of covering the league itself. And so since the journey we started in June, we've had a ton of great guests, legendary guests, David Aldridge, Amin El Hassan. We've had Kevin O'Connor from The Ringer, Rob Perez, Worldwide Wob, came on the show. So we've had a number of great guests, and we're going to continue to do so and keep growing.
Yeah, you already know we could have a whole separate conversation about that, but I want to get into the meat. It's like Christmas, it's a holiday. NBA season officially begins, but for the New York area, our season begins on Wednesday. Knicks Celtics in the Garden. It feels like this is Giants Cowboys of the NBA. It's always Knicks Celtics first game. This is like back-to-back years, right? That they did this.
Every other. Well, it was 2 years ago that the double overtime. The double overtime fanatics. So
it feels like it's often. Like I know it's not every year, but the Celtics had come around every other year. But I like it. I think it's the first step in building up rivalries again. And really establishing that. So I love that. It's going to be good. So you are the pulse of the Knicks fans. Tell me right now, what's the current state of Knicks fandom? What's the vibes like?
I feel it's positive vibes, and it's been a roller coaster of an off season, just in terms of news, rumors, transactions that never happened. But I think overall, it's a very positive vibe. When you're coming off of a year like they did last year with 47 wins, 2 games away from the Eastern Conference Finals, the expectation, the bar has been raised. And so they're coming in with the same team. They're preaching continuity and stability. But Brunson was really the electricity in the Garden last year. You felt it every time he had the ball in his hands. Every time he would make a move, you were confident that he was going to get the job done. Every time he came up big in the clutch. I mean, those type of moments, those are the moments that you're looking forward to next year, this coming season with this team, because in on the micro level, they have a competitive young roster, and in the macro, you feel like the organization has a nice war chest of assets. They've been fairly disciplined in terms of how they want to build the team. Now we wait for the big fish. But while we wait, they still have a competitive team out there that should fare well in the Eastern Conference. So I think there's a lot of excitement around the team.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about preseason, but before we get there, you talk about waiting for that big fish. Well, one gigantic whale went back into the oceans of Milwaukee. Giannis signed that 3-year extension, and we might be letting our own shark into other waters because Quickley and the Knicks did not agree to an extension going forward. No, you've been talking about it. I feel like we all been talking about it a lot the last 24 hours. My question to you, with IQ not signing the extension, because I think my Giannis agenda is officially shut down. I had the Giannis agenda for a minute, but I kind of figured when he went in a couple of interviews and said, I want to win a championship, I need to see a team that's serious about it. You go out and get Dame and you still want to leave, then you look kind of crazy.
Right.
You look kind of crazy. Now he's a dude who prides himself on being a man of his word, highly principled. So I expected it. Once Dame went to Milwaukee, I closed the Giannis book. It was a nice to have. I would have loved him, but I closed the Giannis book. But now talking about Quickley, right? What do you see for Quickley in the Knicks going forward? Do you think that this is a big deal, sort of a big deal, or nothing to be worried about?
I think it's sort of a big deal in that they run the risk of losing him for nothing, because you're going to have teams out there with San Antonio Spurs, for example. They've got $70 million to play with. You see what Victor Wembanyama is looking like in the preseason right now. I don't think they're going to be able to afford to wait on some sort of like slow rebuild. I think if they can get talent, especially with the money that they're going to have at their disposal, maybe they will offer Quickley the north of $25 million that you would have to think that he's looking for. Because if you look at the deal that Jaden McDaniels got 5 years, 132. Devin Vassell also got a pretty big deal from San Antonio Spurs. So his draft classmates got a fairly big bag. But what Quickley and his camp are looking at is this guy finished second in the league in Sixth Man of the Year, a two-way player, a very important piece to the New York Knicks. And what they may be looking at is a potential starting point guard in the league. And when you look at the 2024 free agent class, outside of James Harden, that's it. And if you think that Tyrese Maxey is going to go back to Philly, which most people would think, Immanuel Quickley is probably the best point guard available in the free agent class. So he's betting on himself. And now the Knicks run the risk of potentially losing him in restricted free agency. There's potential that he could be traded by the deadline because they now have his rookie scale deal. It makes it less complex to trade him now that he hasn't signed the extension. Or maybe they go into the offseason, they sign him, they take care of him, or they match an offer that he's received. He comes back to the house and all things are forgotten for now.
Yeah, I look at it as it's business. It's a business, man. Like, this is the way you got to look at it. And I see a lot of the chatter. The one thing I love is when, bro, it's hilarious to me. When people talk about value of players, they're not worth 100 million. They're not worth 80 million. I wonder what they're saying about these people in their day-to-day jobs. Imagine you had somebody say how much you were worth when you're trying to get a raise. Because I like to make the connections between what these players do in real life, because at the end of the day, it is work. Imagine if you're in Quickley's spot where you know you can get a promotion, but it's a flat promotion system where you can only get promoted really if the person above you leaves or isn't there anymore. So he knows I'm worthy of getting this promotion to starting point guard in the NBA, and I know arguably I should have probably been Sixth Man of the Year last year. Like, it was close enough to be a real argument. So I know I have the skill. I'm getting better every year. I've made this intention. That's the biggest thing. He has this intention of being a starting point guard in the league. So on the other side, on the other side, he'll also see players that are taking team-friendly deals. That ain't got nothing to do with him. Just because you taking a discount doesn't mean my bank account is set up the same way. So I can see him saying, I'm gonna bet on myself. If they're not giving me the bag that I want, I'm gonna have a better year than I did last year. Probably get the Sixth Man of the Year, because right now, if you look at it, I think Vegas has him as the favorite. But even when you look at the league and the benches and the quality of people, the six men coming off the bench, there could be some contenders. Chris Paul is an outside candidate, depending on what they do with him in Golden State. But for the most part, this might be his award to lose. And if he gets this sixth man, if he shows up in the playoffs, if he has a better regular season, then you talk about the Spurs. I'm looking at the Pistons because we don't know. Cade might run point, but he could run that off ball. Raptors could be a dark horse. I'm looking at, or maybe even Orlando. There are teams that will look at it quickly and say he could be a piece for the next destination. And on the Knicks side, I could see them saying, let the market, we have the restricted free agent rights, so we can match whatever. We know they probably know what he's worth, but they'd rather roll the dice and see how he performs this year to see if they have some negotiating ability. Otherwise, go get the deal you want, and we'll match it. Then on the other end, you have the poison pill provision, which is no longer an issue because he didn't sign the extension, which means if there is a midseason trade to be made, it can be facilitated better. So I look at it on both ends, where I think there's still a lot of respect between the two, but everybody's doing what's in their best interest, which is business, and you can't hate on that.
It's the ugly side of the business, man. Well said. Well said. Yep.
Yeah, man. We're fans and we love the sport and we love the game, but you have to be pragmatic about it. It is a business as well.
Yep.
Preseason always is what it is. What was one lasting impression that you had watching the Knicks in this preseason?
It's hard to really get a good gauge on them because, hey, give credit to Tibbs. They did have a load management philosophy or strategy headed into the preseason, making sure that Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson got their rest. They had just came off of the FIBA World Cup, so it seems like they wanted to limit their minutes and let them ramp up a little bit slowly. RJ Barrett seemed to have gotten his regular doses of minutes. So when you had a lot of the backups playing and the starters weren't playing and limited minutes, it's hard to really get a gauge. I mean, last year, RJ Barrett shot 50% from three. So that should tell you what you want to take away from the preseason. But when they played Boston and seeing the Celtics bomb away from three, that's not an aberration. That is their game. And for the Knicks, that is one of their biggest weaknesses. So that's something that was not only apparent in the preseason, but what's what we saw during the regular season is that the Knicks 3-point defense can be porous at times, and they're going to be tested right out the gate against Boston, who's going to be firing away. This is what Joe Mazzulla wants to do. So the defense is still a concern, and with the starters not having played that much, it's going to take some time to ramp up and get some chemistry on the defensive end, get their communication down pat, figure out where each other are going to be, but they've got to start out the gates with intensity and energy. That's what Dante DiVincenzo said after the final preseason game. It's got to leave with effort and intensity, and that's what I want to see from this Knicks team starting game one.
Yeah, I don't really take much from preseason. I try to look at conditioning and if all of those open run moves that you've been practicing in the summer, if you're actually using them in the preseason and testing them out. But I will say, man, Mitch looks like a totally different dude. Like, he looks like he's in midseason form. He's probably in the best shape that I can remember him being in. I hope the durability translates to the regular season as well, because, you know, he always gets some random injury, like a fractured hand randomly, and I hope that doesn't happen this year. But just watching how he's running the floor and his cardio, like it just looks like this offseason he went in as Bucky Barnes and he came out as the Winter Soldier. You know, and that's a scary proposition for the league. Yeah. That's a scary proposition, because if he plays 70 plus games, you could see defensive domination. He's still gonna be a monster on the boards, and he could be that linchpin, that consistent linchpin that can help the Knicks get over the hump this season and get to higher heights.
Mitch is a monster, man. He looks great, looks to be in great condition, which wasn't always the case in previous years starting off the season. So you want to see him jump out the gates, firing quickly, stay sharp, stay durable, rather. Stay durable. We need Mitch to stay durable. I'm hoping he can get close to 70 games this year so that he can stay out on the court. And hopefully if he does, he can be in that all defense conversation. And then for Mitch, working on his free throws. That's another thing that we saw in the preseason. He seems to have added some more arc to his free throws. So that's going to be important, because you don't want to hack a Mitch situation. You want him to be out there on the court, especially in critical moments. So I love what I saw from him. And when you mention seeing guys in the preseason to see what they worked on in the offseason, it looks like you saw some of the things that Quentin Grimes was working on with JJ Redick in the offseason, shooting off of movement, shooting off of the dribble. Looks like Quentin Grimes was trying to really implement a lot of the things that he learned from JJ Redick and Penny Hardaway this offseason.
Bro, when I saw him do the hezzy step into the three, I remember he did it the exact same way in that Reddit video. It was incredible. Like, the muscle memory. He's somebody who learns, practices, and executes in the game. And he's one guy that I'm looking at as X factor for the Knicks this season, because this is a dude, he had the second highest true shooting among players who played 1,000 minutes on the Knicks. Mitch, of course, was first, because he's Wilt Chamberlain for this generation with field goal percentage. Literally has the NBA record. And he also had the second highest 3-point percentage, with Brunson being first, which kind of surprised me, and the second most attempts, with Julius being the first. If he's able to get to 40%, his career high is 30. I think he shoots 39 for his career. Yeah. If he can be a consistent 40% threat, that just opens up a whole realm of possibilities for a Knicks offense who is already top 4 in the league. When you don't turn the ball over and you grab offensive rebounds, pace can be what it is. You are going to have a top offense. Now imagine you have Brunson keeps his same pace, and you have Grimes as that threat. I think that opens up the lanes for RJ and for Julius. But we're gonna need them to also elevate their analytical game, what they see on the court, and being able to make the right play. But for Grimes, I think another aspect is Let me know what you think, CP.
Mhm.
I think he has another level of shot creator in him. I
Mhm. Mhm.
see the DNA within him. I see the little moves. Like it's almost as if you're watching a kid grow into an adult in
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
game. Like your little brother 5 years ago didn't have all these moves, and then the day that he just said, "Yo, let's go play 1-on-1," and then he got the whole bag. It's like he had
Yeah.
the Jam
Yeah.
Sport, and it's transforming into a Louis Vuitton right now. I can see the luxury happening with Grimes right now.
He's already showing just you some flashes of playmaking when he's putting the ball on the floor and attacking closeouts. Hey, I'd love to see a little stop and pop in the mid-range, right? When they're running you off the three-point line, sure, it's great to drive to the hole and try to get a high percentage shot, but is there a little stop and pop, a little mid-range action? Everybody wants to liken him to Allen Houston, but that's one thing that H2O had. He was lethal in the mid-range. Any spot on the floor was his to be taken. So with Grimes, a lot of times the adage is, third year, things start to slow down. Things start to come together for a lot of the younger players. And maybe that's going to be it with Grimes because, as you mentioned, he has the work ethic. He has the IQ. Now it's just time to put it all together. And I think he's heading in the right direction.
If Grimes was 6'8", he might mess around and be Anthony Edwards right now. Just because he knows how to use his height and his wingspan. And I see big things for him if he's able to take the leap. And if he's able to take the leap, we go into what we're talking about next. These over-under totals. You know, we gotta talk about a little bit about what's going on in Vegas.
Sure.
The over-under for regular season wins 45.5. Right? You ask me, that's easy money. That's easy money because I think the Knicks have the infrastructure. Why do you think they set it at 45.5?
I'm not sure, man. I mean, maybe they're trying to pencil in a little bit of a regression. Maybe they thought that the Knicks had maybe they overachieved a little bit last year. I don't necessarily see it that way, man. I thought the Brunson impact was real, and I think it'll continue to be that way with Brunson leading the way for this team. They have enough to win a ton of games. They have 2 All-Stars, and I'm calling Brunson an All-Star, even though he's not formally named that. I'm talking about caliber type of players. They have 2 All-Stars. They have Quickley playing at a 6th man of the year level. Mitchell Robinson, what he's doing on the defensive end and their offensive rebounds. They have a ton of good rebounding guards from Josh Hart to DiVincenzo, Quickley, RJ. Grimes can go get you some boards. They have a nice backup 5 in Hartenstein who can play make as well. And as you said, they take care of the ball. They get to the free throw line. So they do a lot of things where if they can replicate it again, it translates to a lot of wins, especially in the East, because I don't think the East is relatively strong. Once the Harden thing and Philadelphia, once they separate, I think Philadelphia is going to come back to the pack. And so they should be able to rip off a couple of wins, a ton of wins. And I'm going over 45.5. I said 48. I'm going back to basically where they finished last year.
Yeah, I'm penciled in 47, 48. I think ceiling is 50 plus. I think teams like Cleveland, Cavs, they're the regular season built team where they have enough talent where they can sleepwalk to 50 wins. The Knicks are gonna grind out every game. This is hell in the cell every night. And teams know it. And you may catch the teams that come into New York the night before. They're like, I ain't trying to get beat up. I ain't trying to have Mitch bump me and all of this. That's how the 90 Knicks was punishing people but everybody could take it. Everybody was a little stronger and more durable back then. And that was just the style of play. But when they instituted a style that had to be legislated out of the game, you knew it was going to be a long night. And they're bringing that mentality. Although 13th in defense. Maybe Vegas is saying their 3-point defense is regressing. It'll regress back. It's a make or miss league. Sometimes you make, sometimes you miss. We'll see how that goes. I'd say 40, even the 45.5, I have a personal vendetta with the hook because the hook catches me more often than not. I try to bob and weave, but that half, it'll catch me every once in a while. But I think barring injury, we got to put the caveat, big caveat. Barring injury in this East, which has gotten depowered because all of I feel like this is like the Empire. Like this is like a war where all your major factions have defected to the other side. Like we had the West for a few years, but the West is back. But I do think 46 plus should be for what this team has established over the last really 3 years. They've had the regression, they've had the overachievement. they've had the overachievement at least nationally, whereas people more locally saw that what the potential was to get that 5th seed, first round victory against the Cavs. We saw that. I don't think it's asking a lot to hit this over. I do not think so.
I don't think so. I don't see it, but still curious as to why there's a lot of bets on coming in on the under. So
it might be the Knicks tax. It's also might be the Knicks tax where you're like, I don't believe in them. We didn't believe in Brunson, but now we see that Brunson can supersede whatever Knicks cloud nationally that they have to be a bona fide star. Because you think about Julius Randle, it's almost like the dude who is nice on the court, but you never want to tell him because you just don't like him, you don't like his game, but you know he's nice, but you don't give him the recognition. That's what I feel like Julius Randle gets with national media. 2-time All-NBA, 2 All-Star in this period. There should be no contention about calling him a star in the league, but people call him a star butt because they don't like whatever. And that's on him. Not so much to control the narrative because he can't really control it, but to show on the court that he does mean business, you know? So I do think they've established that infrastructure to where they should be able to supersede that. And even Bob Myers, he spoke about that, where the perception of the Knicks is now officially on the other side. I love being a fan of a boring offseason where there's no drama, where it's all about business, right? And this is where we are right now. They've turned the tide. You probably need a couple more years of consistency before that perception becomes everybody's reality. Because New York is just a market where anything can happen. You know, as you know, we Giants fans, so you already know the Tyrod footsteps is going to start stomping. Especially they play the Jets. The Tyrod footsteps are going to start stomping. So anything can happen here, right? But I do think the perception is changing, and maybe it translates to Vegas. Or maybe Vegas is saying this is where Vegas takes this is Vegas's version of the 10-leg parlay, the 15-leg parlay. Yo, let's just do 45.5. Let's see if we catch people on the over and they have an off season. Yeah, that is, you know, KnicksFanTV. He tapped in on the Knicks. Let's get into NBA report talk. You know what I mean? We're gonna put on your other hat right now. NBA season starts today. What is one of your favorite storylines that you're following this year?
Man, there's so many, man. There's so many. I'll give you 3. I'll give you 3. All right. Obviously, it's the new look Suns, the Bradley Beal acquisition, Booker, who's going to be running point. How does the big 3? How do they build chemistry? What's Frank Vogel going to be looking like? I love the depth that they added to their bench. I like how they rounded that out. I want to see how far they go. Obviously, you have to respect the champs. What will Denver be looking like? Can they repeat? You know, you haven't had a repeat champion in quite some time. There's been a lot of parity in the league. They've lost Bruce Brown. We'll see what their 3 rookie pickups, how they add to their bench. Julian Strother made a name for himself in the preseason. Will that continue? He's looking like a bucket out there. So how does Denver look? The Warriors, is CP3, is he going to start? Is he coming off the bench? Can they last? Are they going to be durable to get through a gauntlet that is going to be the Western Conference? You have Klay Thompson's contract situation. Is this the swan song for Klay Thompson with that Golden State big 3? On the East, Dame Dollars, Milwaukee. How are they going to coexist? How are they going to play defensively to maintain their status in the East? And of course, you have Boston. How are they going to look with the addition of Drew Holiday? And then and Kristaps Porzingis, and then on the trade front, Philadelphia. Where does Harden go? What's the domino effect ultimately into Joel Embiid? And I got a lot of storylines, man. There's a lot. It's a lot.
That's
man.
The NBA. It's the beauty of the NBA.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what a couple of mine are.
Yeah.
They call him. Shout out to my guy Bomani Jones. They call him Big Vic. They call him Les Slim. I call him Sid Vicious.
Yes.
Slim Vicious, excuse me. Some people call him Wemby because it's an easy nickname.
Yeah.
The Wembification of the NBA this season. This man plays basketball like he is the dad on a Nerf hoop, bro.
Yeah.
Everything every shot you've ever made in your office on the little hoop or in the trash can, he can do. He's a French monster, bro. Yeah. And he is like, he's making the Spurs a league pass alert team.
Absolutely.
All on his own. I think he has a great shot. If he's everything we think he's going to be in this inaugural season, I think he has a big shot. I think he has a great shot to be the first rookie since Tim Duncan to start the All-Star game. Right? I think between voting and people just, this is what you want to see as a fan. You want to see the stars. You want to see marvels. He is as close to a marvel as we have seen. Think about Porzingis, bro, the unicorn. We haven't seen that from 7'5", and this dude comes in and makes him look like a regular NBA player just off of potential alone. So I'm going to be more tapped into the Spurs than I probably have been in my entire life. The other storyline that I'm tapped into is this in-season tournament. I am so interested. I don't know. Do you follow soccer, like world football like that? Or like
not
casual?
close. World Cup, like
okay.
big events I'll tap into for sure.
So ever since I tapped into soccer, I was fascinated by the idea that you can play in your league, and then there's all these other tournaments that y'all play in. You got the Champions League to see who's the champion of Europe. Then you have the FA Cup, which is like England only, domestic cup, amongst other leagues. So for those of y'all who ain't familiar, imagine if the NBA and the G League and the NCAA and the Big Three all played in a tournament. They had the equal opportunity to win a whole tournament. This is a single game elimination. And I think it's smart on the NBA's part to emulate soccer, because soccer and the NBA are the most analogous sports to one another, because you have individual stars, you have transcendent teams. It's a world sport, and they market off of the athleticism and the play of their stars. And they also have the type of regular seasons that are conducive to include this in-game tournament. What are your initial thoughts on the in-season tournament?
Well, I think I like it. I like it in concept. I like it in theory. I just feel like it's harder to replicate what they're doing in soccer, because you have the potential to get those matchups that you wouldn't normally get, right? But with the NBA, it's like, okay, we have the Knicks versus the Wizards, and now this counts for the in-season tournament. It may take a couple of years to catch on, kind of like the play-in tournament. Right. In the beginning, the playing tournament was like, these guys are playing, they have no chance. Yep. And then Miami Heat and the Lakers pushed this thing up to the top of the league. So now you're saying, whoa, anything can happen. And so with the in-season tournament, I think it'll take a while for it to catch on. But one thing the NBA can do well and do right is marketing. And I love their rollout. I was out in Vegas when they rolled the whole thing out. I thought the whole thing was fantastic, the way they explained it, the way they pushed it, and it was blasted all over the Vegas Strip. I think they'll be able to get it done, and I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm hoping to be out there in Vegas for the semifinals and the finals to really take it all in and see how it's perceived.
Yeah, man, I'm right there with you, and I understand that they're trying to make the regular season, at least in the first half of the season, matter. So that's part of the reason why they wanted to institute. And also money. Sure. There's a lot of opportunities to bring more excitement, more TV dollars. I could see somewhere in the future, the next rights deal, maybe Amazon is the one that covers the NBA Cup. I'm calling it the NBA Cup. The in-season tournament is too much. You have to give it more life, like more flavor. Put some seasoning on it. Call it the NBA Cup, or name it after one of our legends. Imagine if it was the Kobe Cup. Not to be discussing or whatever, but I could see them naming it after somebody and generating that. That's probably work for a later period for them. But I want you to listen to a proposal that I had. I was thinking about how could they make this in-season tournament matter?
That's what I want to know. Right.
Okay. Remember All-Star Game in Major League Baseball? AL and NL played, and they put home field advantage in the World Series on the line. I won't completely jump out the window, because there's no way, if I'm an owner, I'm not agreeing to something like that, because it's not it is my conference versus yours, but we're relying on individual teams, not the best of the best. If I'm like the Kansas City Royals or the Oakland A's, yes, please, Shohei, get us home field, please, if we can, right? And they actually stopped doing that. I didn't even know, like, this year that I think they stopped putting that on the line.
Yes.
My idea is the winner of the in-season tournament gets a guaranteed play-in spot. Regardless of what happens in the regular season, it becomes the ultimate tiebreaker. So let's say you are, who do we think? The Wizards. I was like, first thing tank when it comes to mind. The Wizards are more than likely not playing for a play-in spot this year unless something dramatic happens. But let's say the most unlikely occurrence, Washington somehow wins the play-in tournament. This way, I mean, wins the NBA Cup. They win the NBA Cup. Yeah. They'll have a guaranteed play-in spot, which would probably be number 10, depending on if they had the worst record in the league. If they win, if they get in the playoffs, it is what it is. If they don't, then you'd have to figure out the math and what's fair for the odds, because I don't think it's fair that you could get a number, basically have the 14% chance at the number 1 and then also get in the playoffs. But I do think if you can guarantee a play-in spot, then you know that at least the tanking teams are going to have to play their players. They're going to have to play because they know whether they want to or not, they're going to be in the tournament. So if you're a good team and you win and you get in, you just got your spot. Whatever spot you earn, you get. So if you're the Bucks and you win the play-in tournament and you get the number 1 seed, all right, we go on. But if you're like the Wizards or the Spurs and you have the worst record in the league, but you win the play-in, you will have an opportunity to get in the play-in. And if you lose, then we'll figure out the odds. Maybe you get what your spot is minus 5%. I'll leave it up to the stat nerds. But this would also give us the opportunity to see Wemby in a play-in game. Yeah. Or something like that. I mean, that's me spitballing. What do you think?
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm sitting there trying to think about it, like how would it work? You know what I mean? Or thinking about the drawbacks. I think it would certainly incentivize the bottom feeders to actually compete in this thing and try to win and then get into the play-in, and then you never know. I would say, like, okay, suppose you do have the Wizards go and they win it, but then they finish at like a 30-52 record. And then you have like the Pacers that have been scrapping and clawing to get in. Maybe do those 2 teams. Right. Maybe let's say the Pacers have a way better record, right? But they're on the bottom of that play-in. But San Antonio, or maybe they're in that 7, 8, 9 category, but then San Antonio kind of like jumps them, or the Wizards, sorry. So let's say the Wizards jump them and get that spot, or whoever's in 10th. Right, whoever's in 10th.
This is chaos. I ain't gonna front. This is the whole highly chaos. This is what I would say. What do they say to team number 11, CP? You should have won one more game.
Yeah,
you should have won one more game. Right. So if let's say we get total chaos, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 all finished with the same record. The tiebreaker is the play-in. I mean, the NBA Cup. The tiebreaker is the NBA Cup. So if the first tiebreaker would be the Cup. So by virtue of whatever, if we all had the same record, first tie-in, did you win the in-season tournament? First tiebreaker, did you win the in-season tournament? You won, then you would be 7. And then you figure out the tiebreakers from 8 through 11. Because at that point, you know what Adam Silver would say? You should have won the in-season tournament. You should have been treating these games, because now you have a guaranteed spot. Because just like world football, when let's say you're Manchester United, right, and you win the Champions League, the top 4 in their league get a guaranteed Champions League spot. But if you also finish in the top 4, I believe, and I know the stalker nerds may come from me, I don't feel like looking it up, but I believe the next either one team gets bumped out or they allow the next team as well, because they already have a guaranteed spot. And because of money, prestige, the top leagues in Europe, they want the top 4, regardless of who they are. So if they're number 1, if you got your spot, they'll just take 4 more. And it just moves like that. But because, like you said, one of the drawbacks is it isn't like Bucks versus Real Madrid baloncesto, or like Bayern Munich basketball, right? I don't know how to say basketball in German. Somebody Google translate that for me. But that would be an ill NBA Cup, and that's probably 20 years down the line, where we include the world, where we literally we get the world championship.
Yes.
Club
now we get the Noah Lyles Memorial Cup.
right, exactly. I do think that would be the case, but that's why I appreciate when people are thinking about these ways to innovate the league and bring more interest, because you got to think they're thinking about different ways that they can inject excitement, make it fair. Because I originally was gonna say, we should give somebody the winner a one-time salary cap exemption that they could put $30 million under their cap just for that offseason. So if there is a blockbuster trade to be made, the luxury tax, that second apron, you can disregard it if you win the tournament. Yeah. Which would incentivize the good teams to keep on winning. You know how people talk about the lottery and they say, why is it that these players can't dictate where they go? It should be an open market. That's another way to make it an open market, but that also has to be approved of the CBA like everything else. And I am not a capologist either. I could already see the money in the financials, and I could see an advantage to big market teams. But once again, if you don't want it to happen, you gotta play. You gotta play hard every game, and I think that's one of the along with these load management rules and all this other stuff they're trying to institute. They want people to take the entire season seriously because let's be real, CP, they're not cutting these games. It's 82. They're not gonna go higher. They can't. They can't. But it's gonna be 82 unless something drastic happens, right? Yeah. So we gotta make sure that our fans are tapped in and engaged along with our players for the whole season. So I think in-season tournament is a start. And I don't really subscribe to the whole regular season doesn't matter thing. I think it does. You practice how you play. It is practice. I do understand the Warriors, the 73-9 kind of tanked everything I just said. But I do think that those games do matter because it's a barometer for how you may perform, especially for the non-contender, no doubt about it contenders, right? But I do like that, man. That's definitely one of my storylines. And of course, who is going to be there in the end? I think this is one of the most open years. Dude, we're in a period of parity for the league.
Yes, yeah.
This is the best period of parity I think we've had, maybe since the mid-90s, maybe since Michael's first retirement. I think this is like the most parity I've seen as a fan. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely, man. When you look at the East, I think it's four teams. Obviously, it starts with the Bucks and the Celtics. You have to respect what the Cavaliers have done, and then I'm putting the Knicks right there, man. I'm putting the Knicks right there between that 3 and 4 spot, and I think that'll be your 4 in the East. And in the West, obviously, you start with Denver. You put some respect on their name, but how do the Warriors look? I mean, it's a lot of the storylines are on CP3 and his chemistry. How does he mix? Will he start? Will he be off the bench? But Jonathan Kuminga is showing you something in this preseason. And again, it's just preseason. But boy, oh boy, when you think about the age of this Golden State roster and a one-side storyline of that team during the course of their run was how are they going to continue to build around their young players? And now Jonathan Kuminga is showing you a little bit of something here. I think that'll be interesting to see how that impacts their team over the course of the season. So you have them, you have the Suns, you have Denver. How will the Lakers look? I mean, the Lakers added a ton of players. If LeBron and AD are able to stay healthy, big if. And it's a bigger if now with LeBron. It keeps growing as he ages. He's still playing at an incredible high level, but he's starting to slow it down a little bit with the injuries. If they can get up there with the wing depth that they added, the guards and everything like that, I think it's going to be open, man. It could be very, very open in the West.
This season in the NBA is the uncles on the Western Conference versus the young boys on the nephews on the Eastern Conference. Because I feel like the whole story in the West is asterisk if healthy.
If healthy.
Clippers, Lakers, Suns, Warriors. There's like 12 teams that can make a claim to get one of those 10 playing spots. And we don't know who's going to remain healthy, right? And then in the East, it's who wants the top 4. Who wants seed 3 and who wants seed 4?
Right.
Because I think the top 2, barring anything, is going to be spoken for. At least one of those top 4 spots are spoken for. Who wants the other 2? What is going to happen? I think you have 4 teams that are, at least from now, vying: Cavs, Sixers, Knicks, and I gotta say Heat. At this point, the Heat are like, you got to, right? They're the Oscar bait movie of the NBA Eastern Conference, where they play the game in a way to get into the playoffs. So you gotta keep them there. But it's gonna be an interesting season, and it's always interesting when I talk to you, my brother.
Appreciate
I need you to plug everything. This is your promotion spot. Let the people know where they can find you.
For sure, man. Well, on the YouTube side of things, it's KnicksFanTV, youtube.com/KnicksFanTV, youtube.com/@the NBA Report. You can find us on social media, KnicksFanTV on all platforms. Team NBA Report on Instagram and on Twitter, and then at CP the Fanchise on all of our major social media platforms, man. So definitely thanks again for having me on, man. Anytime you want to do this, man, I'm here for you, and let's do it, man. Looking forward to the season.
You already know, and I gotta see that NBA report. I gotta make my return to Knicks Fan TV. I miss the callers, man. I miss all them guys. I gotta get back on. You already know. I'm
Looking forward to it, man.
That is CP the Franchise. I'm Jeff Johnson. Thank you for tapping in. We got more in store for you, so keep following. Like this video if you love what you're hearing. Share it. Tell a friend to tell a friend. And until next time, you already know the vibes. Ball out, but don't ball till you fall. Peace.